My father looked my 8-year-old daughter straight in the eye and said, "Food is for family members only." 62 relatives watched him deny her a plate at our family reunion. What happened the next morning had the police at his doorstep and our entire family in chaos. I'm Judith, and I need to tell you what happened that day because it changed everything about how I see family, loyalty, and the price of standing up for what's right. My daughter Brianne had been practicing for weeks to meet my extended family. She'd stand in front of our hallway mirror, smoothing down her dress and rehearsing her introduction. "Hi, I'm Brianne Hoffman. I'm 8 years old and I love horses and chocolate chip cookies." She'd grin at herself, showing the gap where her front tooth had fallen out just a month before. Brianne isn't my biological daughter. I adopted her 2 years ago when she was 6, after fostering her for 8 months. She'd been in the system since age 4, bouncing between homes that treated her like a temporary inconvenience rather than a child who needed love. When she came to me, she barely spoke above a whisper and flinched when anyone raised their hand too quickly. Now she sings in the shower and leaves her artwork all over our refrigerator. My father, Walter, never approved of the adoption. He's the kind of man who ran our local bank branch for 30 years and believes the world operates on strict hierarchies and bloodlines. When I told him I was adopting Brianne, he actually said to me, "Why would you water down our family legacy with someone else's cast-off?" I should have known then what was coming, but I believed that seeing her, meeting her, would change his heart. The morning of the reunion started so perfectly. Brianne woke up at 6, too excited to sleep. "Mom, do you think they'll like my dress? Should I wear the yellow one or the purple one? What if the other kids don't want to play with me?" I French braided her hair while she chattered nervously, her little hands fidgeting with the hem of her chosen yellow sundress. "You're going to be the star of the reunion," I told her, securing the braid with her favorite butterfly hair tie. "Everyone's going to love you just like I do." We drove 2 hours to my parents' property in rural Pennsylvania, Brianne counting red cars and asking me to tell her stories about each family member she was about to meet. "Tell me about Uncle Philip again," she said. "Is he really as tall as a basketball player?" "Even taller," I said, glancing at her in the rearview mirror. "And his boys are going to love having a new cousin to play with." When we pulled into the long gravel driveway, dozens of cars were already parked along the fence. The smell of barbecue smoke drifted through the air and we could hear music and laughter coming from the backyard. Brianne grabbed my hand as we walked toward the gate, her grip tight with nervous excitement. "Remember," she whispered to herself, "I'm Brianne Hoffman. I belong here." Those words would echo in my mind for weeks afterward, because within 3 hours my own father would look at this beautiful, hopeful child and tell her exactly the opposite. And when he did, when he denied her food and called her a stray in front of our entire family, something inside me snapped. Not in anger, though that would come later, but into a cold, clear determination. You see, Walter Hoffman forgot one crucial thing that day. He forgot that I'm my father's daughter in one specific way. When someone hurts my family, I don't just get mad, I get strategic. And my 8-year-old daughter, with her gap-toothed smile and butterfly hair tie, is absolutely my family. What Walter didn't know as he stood there blocking Brianne from the food table was that his own carefully hidden past was about to come crashing down around him. He didn't know that within 24 hours, his theft would be exposed, his reputation would be destroyed, and the entire family would turn their backs on him. He didn't know that the stray he rejected would become the catalyst for his complete downfall. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you exactly how it all unfolded, starting with the moment we walked through that gate and into what should have been a simple family gathering. The annual Hoffman family reunion was supposed to be special this year. After 2 years of officially adopting Brianne, I was finally bringing her to meet the extended family at my parents' sprawling property in rural Pennsylvania. The 5-acre property had been in our family for 3 generations, complete with a red barn converted into a party space and a yard big enough to host our ever-growing clan. Brianne had been practicing introducing herself for weeks. Every morning at breakfast, she'd stand up straight, extend her little hand for a practice handshake, and say, "Hi, I'm Brianne Hoffman. I'm 8 years old, and I'm very pleased to meet you." She'd been in foster care since age 4, bouncing between homes until she landed with me. Before that, her birth mother's drug addiction had left her neglected, often forgotten in her crib for hours. The adoption was finalized 6 months ago, making her legally and lovingly my daughter. My mother, Lorraine, had been supportive throughout the adoption process. She'd driven down to witness the court proceedings, crying happy tears when the judge declared Brianne officially a Hoffman. During our weekly video calls, she always asked to see her newest grandbaby, and she'd sent Brianne care packages filled with homemade cookies and little toys. "Every child deserves a grandmother who spoils them," she'd say, winking at the camera. But my father, Walter, was different. He ran First National Bank's local branch for 30 years before retiring, and he approached life like he approached lending. Everything had to fit into neat categories with proper documentation and bloodline verification. "You're 38 and single, Judith. Why complicate your life?" he'd said when I first mentioned adoption. "Blood is blood. You can't just manufacture family. What happens when you meet someone and want real children?" "She will be my real child," I'd responded, but he just shook his head and changed the subject to property values. The morning of the reunion, Brianne wore her favorite yellow sundress with tiny sunflowers embroidered along the hem. I found her in the bathroom, trying to smooth down a stubborn cowlick. "Do you think Grandpa Walter will like me?" she asked while I braided her hair, weaving the strands into a perfect French braid. "Of course, sweetheart. You're family now," I assured her, though something twisted in my stomach. I'd been telling myself for months that once Walter met her, once he saw her bright smile and heard her infectious laugh, his cold exterior would melt. Even the hardest hearts soften around children, right? We arrived at noon to find the backyard transformed with white folding tables, red and blue balloons tied to every chair, and a massive buffet table groaning under the weight of family recipes. My brother Philip was manning the grill, his 6'4" frame hunched over as he flipped burgers with surgical precision. His wife Denise arranged desserts on a separate table, her famous 7-layer chocolate cake taking center stage. My sister Corinne's 3 boys, Carson, Max, and little Danny, ran wild through the sprinklers she'd set up to keep the kids entertained. The entire extended family was there. Cousins I hadn't seen since the previous summer mingled with aunts and uncles from 3 states away. My father's brother Theodore held court near the beverage station, telling his famous fishing stories to anyone who would listen. The smell of barbecue smoke mixed with Aunt Patricia's perfume and the sweet scent of Denise's fresh-baked pies. "Judith, there's my girl!" My mother rushed over the moment she spotted us, her arms outstretched. She wore her favorite summer dress, the blue one with white flowers that she saved for special occasions. She embraced me quickly, then dropped to her knees to hug Brianne. "And there's my beautiful granddaughter. Look how pretty you are in that dress," Brianne beamed, twirling to show off the sunflowers. "Grandma Lorraine, I practiced my introduction. Want to hear it?" "I would love nothing more," my mother said, and Brianne performed her rehearsed greeting flawlessly. Behind my mother, my father stood rigid in his pressed khakis and polo shirt, barely nodding in our direction. He held a beer in one hand, his Hoffman family reunion committee badge pinned to his chest like a military honor. He'd organized these gatherings for 15 years, treating them with the same severity he'd once reserved for bank audits. "Hello, Dad," I said, trying to keep my voice warm. "Judith," he replied curtly. His eyes flicked to Brianne, then away, as if she were an unpleasant detail, in an otherwise perfect scene, but I pushed down my unease. The day was young, the sun was shining, and Brianne was already spotting other children to play with. Everything would be fine. It had to be. Everything seemed fine at first. Brianne played with the other children, her laughter mixing with theirs as they raced through the sprinklers and played tag around the old oak tree. My cousin Renata complimented her dress, asking where I'd bought it. Uncle Theodore taught her his famous disappearing quarter trick, and she squealed with delight when he found the coin behind her ear. For 2 hours, I allowed myself to believe we belonged. I helped Denise refill the lemonade pitchers while keeping one eye on Brianne. She was playing freeze tag with Carson and his brothers, her yellow dress now sporting grass stains at the knees. "She's fitting in wonderfully," Denise said, following my gaze. "Look how happy she is." I was so worried, I admitted, watching Brianne tag Max and dissolve into giggles. Dad hasn't exactly been supportive of the adoption. Denise touched my arm gently. Walter will come around. How could anyone resist that sweet face? At 3 o'clock, Philip rang the old dinner bell mounted on the barn wall. "Everyone grab a plate," he announced, his booming voice carrying across the yard. "Kids first, then adults. We've got burgers, hot dogs, Grandma's potato salad, corn on the cob, and Aunt Patricia's famous baked beans." The children immediately abandoned their games and rushed toward the buffet line. Parents helped the younger ones, while the older kids jostled playfully for position. Brianne stood between my nephew Carson and my cousin's daughter Fiona, chatting excitedly about the potato salad she wanted to try. She'd been talking about Grandma Lorraine's potato salad ever since I'd mentioned it that morning. I watched from the beverage table where I was helping my mother pour fresh iced tea into pitchers. The sight of Brianne, in line with all her new cousins, made my chest tight with happiness. This was what I dreamed of when I'd started the adoption process, my daughter being just another kid in the chaos of our big, loving family. That's when I saw my father step away from his conversation with Uncle Theodore and walk purposefully toward the serving line. At first, I thought he was going to help serve the children. He positioned himself right at the start of the buffet table, where the plates and napkins were stacked. He handed a plate to Carson with a smile. "There you go, buddy. Get plenty of food." He gave one to Fiona. "Don't forget the corn, sweetheart. I know it's your favorite." But when Brianne stepped forward with her hands outstretched for a plate, Walter pulled the stack back against his chest, blocking her completely. "Excuse me, Grandpa," Brianne said politely, thinking he hadn't seen her. She rose up on her tiptoes, her small voice clear and sweet. Walter looked down at her, and the expression on his face made my blood turn to ice. It wasn't confusion or oversight. It was deliberate, cold calculation. "Food is for family members only," Walter said, his voice carrying across the suddenly silent yard. Every conversation stopped. The only sound was the hiss of burgers on the grill. "This reunion is for Hoffmans, real Hoffmans." Brianne's hands trembled as she lowered them to her sides. "But I am family. My mom is Judith. I'm Brianne Hoffman. I practiced my introduction and everything." "No," Walter said, his tone as sharp as broken glass. "You're just some kid Judith felt sorry for. We don't feed strays at family events." He turned to Philip, who stood frozen with a spatula in his hand. "Make sure she doesn't take anything." The yard was silent. 62 people stood frozen like statues in some horrible tableau. My mother's face went white as paper. Corinne covered her mouth with both hands. Aunt Patricia dropped the serving spoon she'd been holding, and it clattered against the concrete patio. Not one person moved to intervene. Not one voice rose in protest. Brianne looked across the yard and found me, her eyes filling with tears that she was desperately trying not to let fall. "Mommy?" The word came out so small, so broken, that it shattered something inside me. I set down the pitcher I was holding and walked over slowly, my legs feeling like they were moving through water. Each step seemed to take forever. I could feel every eye on me, waiting to see what I would do. Would I make a scene? Would I scream at my father? Would I grab a plate anyway and dare him to stop me? I knelt down in front of Brianne and took her face gently in my hands. Her cheeks were hot with humiliation, and I could feel her whole body shaking. "You know what?" I said, loud enough for everyone to hear but looking only at her. "This food probably isn't that good anyway. How about you and I go get ice cream instead? Just the two of us?" "The double chocolate kind?" she whispered, one tear finally escaping down her cheek, "with extra sprinkles and whipped cream and even a cherry on top." That night, after Brianne cried herself to sleep in my arms, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open and a cup of coffee growing cold beside me. My phone showed 37 missed calls from various relatives, but I ignored them all. I had something more important to do than listen to excuses or half-hearted apologies. Brianne had barely spoken during our ice cream trip. She'd ordered her double chocolate cone with extra sprinkles, but she only managed a few licks before pushing it away. "Mom, why doesn't Grandpa Walter think I'm real family?" she'd asked in the car. "I have the same last name. I live with you. The judge said I was a Hoffman forever." "You are real family, baby," I'd told her, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles went white. "Sometimes adults are wrong about important things. This is Grandpa's mistake, not yours." Now, with her safely asleep, I opened Facebook and found the Hoffman family reunion page my sister managed. 418 members, including extended family across 6 states, business associates of my father's, and family friends who'd attended reunions over the years. Perfect. But first I needed evidence. Raw footage would be worth more than my word alone. I called my cousin Renata. She answered on the 3rd ring, her voice heavy with guilt. "Judith, I'm so sorry. I should have said something. I was just shocked and frozen, and I hate myself for not defending Brianne." "Did anyone record what happened?" I asked, skipping past her apology. I didn't have time for guilt. I needed action. "Actually, yes. Philip's son Devin was live streaming on Instagram for his girlfriend who couldn't make it. He caught the whole thing. He's 17 and horrified about what happened. He already sent me the video without me even asking." "Send it to me now." The video arrived within minutes. Crystal clear audio of my father's words. The look on Brianne's face as her little heart broke. The silence of everyone watching. Devin had even zoomed in at the crucial moment, catching Walter's cruel expression perfectly. Then I made another call, this one to my mother's sister, Aunt Meredith, who lived in Florida. She was the family historian, the keeper of secrets and old photographs. She answered on the 1st ring. "Judith, your mother told me what happened. I'm disgusted. That poor baby. How is she?" "She cried herself to sleep asking why she isn't real family, but Aunt Meredith, I need to ask you something about Walter's past." "What about it?" "Was there ever anything about how he treated family? Any history I should know? Mom mentioned once that Dad had a difficult childhood, but she never gave details." The pause was so long I thought the call had dropped. Then Meredith spoke carefully. "Judith, there's something you should know. Your father isn't a biological Hoffman. My father, your grandfather, adopted Walter when he married your grandmother. Walter was her son from a previous relationship. He was 7 years old." My blood went cold. I actually shivered in my warm kitchen. "What?" "Walter's biological father abandoned them when he was 3. Your grandmother struggled for years as a single mother. When she married your grandfather, Walter was 7 and desperate for a father. The adoption went through when he was 8. "The same age as Brianne," I whispered. "Yes. And your grandfather's family gave him hell for it for years, called him the charity case and the pretender at every family gathering until your grandfather threatened to cut them all off. Some relatives boycotted reunions for a decade because Grandpa insisted Walter was a real Hoffman. The irony was suffocating. The hypocrisy made me nauseous. My father, who knew exactly how it felt to be rejected by family, had just done the same thing to an innocent child." "There's more," Meredith continued. "I have documents, letters from your grandfather defending Walter to hostile relatives, the adoption papers, photos of Walter's first family reunion where half the family refused to acknowledge him. Everything. Send me everything. Tonight." I worked through the night like a detective building a case. I contacted my friend Beatrice, a discrimination lawyer who owed me a favor from when I'd helped save her diabetic cat. I gathered screenshots of my father's Facebook posts over the years, including one from 3 months ago that said, "Real family shares blood. Everything else is just pretend." Then I discovered something else. As treasurer of the Hoffman Family Trust, Walter had access to substantial funds meant for family scholarships and emergency aid. The trust's bylaws, which I downloaded from the state website, specifically stated that adopted children were full beneficiaries. But when I cross-referenced the scholarship distributions with family records, no adopted children had ever received a penny. By 5 a.m., I had compiled everything into a comprehensive file: the video, the documents, the evidence of Walter's own adoption, the trust irregularities, financial records showing suspicious transfers. It was time to light the fuse. At 8 a.m. Monday morning, I posted the video to the Hoffman Family Reunion page with a lengthy caption that I'd revised 12 times to ensure maximum impact. Yesterday, Walter Hoffman denied food to an 8-year-old child at our family reunion, stating food is for family members only and calling her a stray. This child is my legally adopted daughter, Brianne Hoffman. She has been part of this family for 2 years. The attached video shows the incident in full. What Walter seems to have forgotten is that he himself was adopted into the Hoffman family at age 7. He wasn't born a Hoffman. By his own logic, he shouldn't have been at that reunion either. I'm attaching his adoption papers and letters from my grandfather defending young Walter against relatives who called him not real family. But there's more. After investigating last night, I've discovered Walter has been embezzling from the Hoffman Family Trust for 3 years. The reunion yesterday? Paid for with $8,000 from the trust, meant for college scholarships for Hoffman children. All Hoffman children, including adopted ones, according to the trust's bylaws, which I'm also attaching. The trust has awarded $47,000 in scholarships over the past 3 years. Not one penny went to the 3 adopted children in our family who applied. Instead, the money went to a private account Walter controls. I have bank statements proving this. I've forwarded all documentation to the authorities and the trustee board. The district attorney's office opens at 9 a.m. Within 10 minutes, the post had 40 comments. Within an hour, over 200. Family members were horrified, outraged, and most importantly, they were talking. Cousin Renata commented, "I knew something was off when my adopted son's scholarship application was rejected without explanation. Now I know why." Uncle Theodore wrote, "Walter convinced me to donate an extra $5,000 to the trust last year for the children's future. I want my money back." Philip posted, "As Walter's son, I'm ashamed and disgusted. Brienne is my niece. Period. Dad, you're no longer welcome at my home." My phone started ringing at 8:47 a.m. It was my mother. "Judith, what have you done? The entire family is in chaos. Your father is having a meltdown. He's threatening to sue you for defamation." "Everything I posted is true, Mom. I have receipts for all of it." "But the police? Was that necessary?" "He stole money meant for children's education while humiliating my daughter for being adopted, despite being adopted himself. Yes, it was necessary." "Judith, please, can't we handle this as a family? We had that chance yesterday, Mom. 62 people watched him hurt my baby and said nothing. You said nothing. Family handling things quietly is how Walter got away with this for so long." By 10 a.m., 2 police officers were at Walter's door with a warrant. I knew because Philip texted me a photo from his parents' driveway. The trust's lawyer called me at 10:30 to confirm they'd frozen all accounts pending investigation and to thank me for bringing this to their attention. At noon, Walter tried calling me directly. I let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected. "You've destroyed this family, Judith. All for some kid who isn't even yours. I hope you're happy." That afternoon, Corinne called with more information. "Judith, I've been going through the trust records you posted. The $47,000 is just what he took in scholarships. There's another $23,000 missing from the emergency fund. He bought a boat last year, remember? Said business was good at the bank, but he'd been retired for 2 years. By 3 p.m., the story had spread beyond the family. Someone leaked it to our local newspaper's Facebook page. "Prominent retired banker, accused of stealing from family trust after denying food to adopted grandchild," read the headline. The comments section exploded with people sharing their own stories of adoption discrimination. Walter was released on bail at 4 p.m., but the damage was done. The trustee board held an emergency vote at 5 p.m. Uncle Theodore called me with the results. Unanimous decision. Walter is removed as treasurer, banned from any family financial decisions, and required to pay full restitution. We also voted on something else. We're establishing the Brienne Hoffman Inclusion Fund specifically for adopted and foster children in the family. Your daughter's name will be on every scholarship we give. That evening, my mother called again. Her voice was different this time, smaller and broken. "I'm leaving him, Judith. I've already talked to a lawyer. I can't stay with someone who would hurt a child that way, who would steal from his own family, who would betray everything his father fought for when defending him as a boy." "Mom, you don't have to make any decisions right now." "Yes, I do. I stood there yesterday and did nothing while he hurt my granddaughter. I'll never forgive myself for that. But I can do something now. I'm filing papers tomorrow." The last call of the day came from Devin, Philip's son who had filmed everything. "Aunt Judith, I wanted you to know the video has been shared over 10,000 times. People are calling Brienne a hero. They're saying she's the bravest little girl they've ever seen." 3 weeks later, we held an impromptu redo reunion at the same location. This time, Philip personally served Brienne her plate first, piling it high with her favorite foods. "Real family," he said loudly, making sure everyone could hear, "is about love, not blood. Brienne, you get first pick of everything today, and I mean everything. You want 3 pieces of cake? You got it." Brienne giggled, her confidence slowly returning. She wore a new dress, this one covered in butterflies, and her hair was in 2 perfect pigtails that Grandma Lorraine had styled that morning. My mother had moved in with us temporarily after filing for divorce, and she'd spent every day since showing Brienne how loved she was. Walter wasn't invited. The divorce papers my mother filed made that clear, along with the restraining order that prevented him from coming within 500 feet of any family gathering. He'd been officially disinvited from every family event for the next decade, a decision voted on by the entire extended family through an online poll that went 117 to 1. The only person who voted for him to stay was Walter himself. The prosecutor called me the following week. Walter had accepted a plea deal, 2 years probation, 200 hours of community service specifically at children's charities, and full restitution of the stolen $70,000. His reputation in our small Pennsylvania town was completely destroyed. The man who had run the bank for 3 decades, who decided who was worthy of loans and trust, was now the town pariah who stole from children and humiliated his own granddaughter. The local newspaper ran a follow-up story about the Brienne Hoffman Inclusion Fund. In just 3 weeks, family members and strangers touched by the story had donated over $30,000. 3 adopted children in our extended family had already received scholarships for summer camp, tutoring, and music lessons. But the most meaningful moment came last Sunday. Brienne and I were baking cookies with my mother when Brienne said something that broke my heart all over again. "Mom, I knew he would be mean to me that day." I stopped mixing the cookie dough and knelt down to her level. "How did you know, baby?" Because when people say real family, they usually mean not you. I heard it at 2 foster homes before, but now I know better. Real family shows up. Real family shares. Real family stands up for you when someone is cruel. Real family is Grandma Lorraine teaching me to bake. It's Uncle Philip lifting me up on his shoulders. It's Cousin Devin making me a TikTok star. She was playing with a new bracelet my mother had given her, engraved with Brienne Hoffman Forever Family. Every aunt, uncle, and cousin had signed a card that came with it, officially welcoming her to the family and apologizing for their silence that day. "You know what else I learned?" Brienne continued, adding chocolate chips to our cookie dough. "Sometimes the people who hurt others the most are the ones who were hurt the same way. Grandma Lorraine told me about Grandpa Walter being adopted. Maybe he forgot how it felt to be told you don't belong." "That's very mature of you to understand that," I said, amazed at her insight. "I don't forgive him, though," she added quickly. "Understanding isn't the same as forgiving. He's a grown-up. He should know better." She was right, of course. Understanding someone's pain doesn't excuse them passing it on to innocent children. The truth is, Walter was right about one thing. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Legal documents do. Showing up does. Standing up to bullies does. And sometimes the best families are the ones we choose and who choose us back. My father thought he could decide who belonged. Instead, he learned what happens when you mess with a mother protecting her child. He learned that karma has a way of revealing hypocrites. He learned that secrets buried in shame have a way of surfacing at the worst possible moment. And he learned that in our family, every child gets a plate at the table, especially the ones who've been hungry for belonging their whole lives. Brienne is thriving now. She starts 3rd grade next week, and she's excited about joining the school choir. She hasn't mentioned Walter in days. When someone asks about her grandfather, she talks about Uncle Theodore, who officially requested we call him Grandpa Teddy and takes her fishing every Saturday. Last night, as I tucked her into bed, Brienne said, "Mom, I'm glad it happened." "Why, sweetheart?" "Because now I know for sure who my real family is, and it's way bigger than I thought." She was already drifting off to sleep, but she had one more thing to say. "Mom, tomorrow can we make a thank you video for all the people who shared our story? Devin says we're kind of famous now." And that's the thing about standing up to bullies, even when they're your own family. Sometimes especially when they're your own family. It shows everyone watching what you're really made of, and it teaches your children that they're worth fighting for, always. If this story touched your heart, please like this video and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment below about what family really means to you. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful true stories that will restore your faith in justice and the power of a parent's love. Thank you for being part of our story family.